We'll be beginning first with the history of MCPS. Montgomery County is one of the largest school districts in the country, with over 160,000 current students and 208 schools. But today, MCPS is facing challenges, including overcrowding in schools, changing programming needs, changing demographics, and changing issues with proximity to schools. The population growth has been consistent over time, but is not spread out evenly across MCPS. We'd like you to focus in on which clusters are experiencing the highest levels of population growth in order to understand where the most pressing challenges for overpopulation of schools is. We'd also like to consider student enrollment history, as it's grown from the 1950s, when only 48 schools were needed, to today, when we have 208 schools and 4 more schools planned to be built or reopened. Over time, the number of schools has ebbed and flowed based on population growth, with 155 schools built during the baby boom and 60 schools closed during the baby bust, when the average family size in Montgomery County shrunk from 3.5 to 2.5. During a period of regional growth that was largely defined by an increase in demographic diversity, another 47 schools were rebuilt or newly built. In the following period, in most recent history, we've seen 13 more schools built or reopened. And once again, we're planning to open 4 schools in the future before 2025. As mentioned before, student enrollment history has been largely defined in recent years by an increase in student diversity, with significant growth of the African American population beginning in the 1970s, and growth of the Hispanic and Asian populations beginning in the early 2000s. Today, the Hispanic population represents a plurality in Montgomery County. Our policy history has also followed along with the ebbs and flows of local population. As the number of students has increased and programmatic changes are needed, the county has responded through policy changes as well as infrastructure changes. Those policy and infrastructure changes are often defined by school construction or additions, land management strategies, facility improvements, portable classrooms, and even repurposed facilities. But the county also uses a slate of policy options to deal with the challenges of growing school populations and changing programmatic needs. These include articulation patterns, school consortia, magnet and IB programs, school pairing, which means that when one school is adjacent to another and they're experiencing high levels of segregation, those schools are paired in order to give students the options of attending less segregated schools. And finally, when necessary, MCPS employs boundary changes. Now we'd like to hear from you. Based on a review of Montgomery County Public School history, what stood out for you as critical events in the history of the school system?